Good day, everyone. Today, we will learn about Araling Panlipunan. In this discussion, you will learn about La Solidaridad and La Liga Filipina, the Katipunan, Cry of Pugad Lawin, and the Pact of Biak na Bato. Here is the outline of this discussion. First, we will discuss the La Liga Filipina and La Solidaridad. Second is the Katipunan. Third is the Cry of Pugad Lawin. And fourth is the Biak na Bato Republic and Pact. La Liga Filipina. In 1892, Jose Rizal, or Jose Protasio Mercado Rizal y Alonso, returned to the Philippines and proposed the establishment of a civic organization called La Liga Filipina. On July 3, 1892, the following were elected as its officers: Ambrosio Salvador as president, Agustin de la Rosa as fiscal, Bonifacio Arevalo as treasurer, and Deodato Arellano as secretary. Rizal functioned as its advisor. La Liga Filipina aimed to: first is to unite the whole country, second is to protect and assist all members, third is to fight violence and injustice, fourth is to support education, and fifth is to study and implement reforms. La Liga Filipina had no intention of rising up in arms against the government, but the Spanish officials still felt threatened. On July 6, 1892, only 3 days after La Liga Filipina's establishment, Jose Rizal was secretly arrested. The next day, Governor-General Eulogio Despujol ordered Rizal's deportation to Dapitan, a small secluded town in Zamboanga. La Liga Filipina's membership was active in the beginning, but later, they began to drift apart. The rich members wanted to continue supporting the propaganda movement, but the others seemed to have lost all hope that reforms could still be granted. Andres Bonifacio was one of those who believed that the only way to achieve meaningful change was through a bloody revolution. La Solidaridad. In order to help achieve its goals, the propaganda movement put up its own newspaper called La Solidaridad. The Soli, as the reformers fondly called their official organ, came out once every 2 weeks. The first issue saw print was published on November 15, 1895. The Solidaridad's first editor was Graciano Lopez Haina. Marcelo H. Del Pilar took over in October 1889. Del Pilar managed the Soli until it stopped publication due to the lack of funds. Why the propaganda movement failed? The propaganda movement did not succeed in its pursuit of reforms. The colonial government did not agree to any of its demands. Spain itself was undergoing a lot of internal problems all that time, which could explain why the mother country failed to heed the Filipinos' petitions. The friars, on the other hand, were at the height of their power and displayed even more arrogance in flaunting their influence. They had neither the time nor the desire to listen to the voice of the people. Many of the reformists showed a deep love for their country, although they still failed to maintain a united front. Because most of them belonged to the upper middle class, they had to exercise caution in order to safeguard their wealth and other private interests. Personal differences and petty quarrels, apart from the lack of funds, were also a hindrance to the movement's success. Lastly, No other strong and charismatic leader emerged from the group aside from Jose Rizal. The Katipunan finally starts a revolution. Andres Bonifacio was also a member of La Liga Filipina, although he soon lost hope in gaining reforms through peaceful means. This feeling was especially heightened when Jose Rizal was exiled to Dapitan. Bonifacio became convinced that the only way the Philippines could gain independence was through a revolution. Bonifacio then founded the Kataas-Taasang Kagalang-galangang Katipunan ng Mga Anak ng Bayan o KKK on July 7, 1892 in a house on Azcaraga Street, now Claro M. Recto, in Tondo, Manila. The Katipunan had colorful beginnings. As a symbol of the members' loyalty, they performed the solemn rite of Sanduguan, or blood compact, wherein each one signed his name with his own blood. The members agreed to recruit more people using the triangle system of enlistment. Each original member would recruit 2 new members who were not related to each other. Each new member would do the same thing, and so on down the line. Members were also asked to contribute 1 real, about 25 centavos, each month in order to raise funds for the association. The KKK members agreed on the following objectives. First, the political goal was to completely separate the Philippines from Spain after declaring the country's independence. Second, the moral goal was to teach the Filipinos good manners, cleanliness, hygiene, fine morals, and how to guard themselves against religious fanaticism. Third, the civic goal was to encourage Filipinos to help themselves and to defend the poor and oppressed. The Kataas-Taasang Sanggunian or Supreme Council was the highest governing body of the Katipunan. It was headed by a Supremo or President. Each province had a Sangguniang Bayan or Provincial Council, and each town had a Sangguniang Balangay or Popular Council. All these would be overseen by the Supreme Council of the Katipunan, or the Kataas-Taasang Sanggunian, which was composed of a president, secretary, fiscal, treasurer, and 6 councilors. The legislative body of the Katipunan was known as the Katipunan Assembly, and it was composed of the members of the Supreme Council along with the presidents of the popular and provincial councils. Judicial power rested in the Sangguniang Hukuman, which were provincial courts that decided on internal matters. However, judgment on grave matters, such as betraying the Katipunan or committing acts penalized by the organization's laws, were meted by the secret chamber composed of Andres Bonifacio, Emilio Jacinto, and Dr. Pio Valenzuela. The leaders of the Katipunan: Deodato Arellano, Supremo; Ladislao Diwa, Fiscal; Teodoro Plata, Secretary; Valentin Diaz, Treasurer; and Andres Bonifacio, Controller. Deodato Arellano from 1844 to 1899. He was from Logia Lusong number 185. His Masonic name was Buwan. He was the first Supremo or President of the Supreme Council of the Katipunan. He was present during Rizal's founding of La Liga Filipina and was elected its secretary. He married Hilaria, the sister of Marcelo H. del Pilar. He was imprisoned in 1896 and went home to Bulacan after the first phase of the revolution. At the outbreak of the Philippine-American War, he joined the army brigade of his nephew, General Gregorio del Pilar. He died of tuberculosis on October 7, 1899, while fighting in the Cordillera Mountains. Ladislao Diwa, from 1863 to 1930. He was from Logia Taliban No. 165. His Masonic name was Baguio. He was a native of San Roque, Cavite, and was working as escribano del juzgado when he was captured by the Spanish authorities in Betis, Pampanga, after the exposure of the Katipunan. He was released after the signing of the Pact of Biak na Bato. Diwa served as delegate in the Malolos Congress, survived the Philippine-American War, and returned to Cavite. He died on March 12, 1930. Caridad Elementary School in Cavite City was renamed in his honor on November 1964. Teodoro Plata from 1866 to 1897. He was a member of Logia Taliban No. 165. His Masonic name was Balani. He was the cousin of Gregoria de Jesus, who became the wife of Andres Bonifacio. He, in turn, married Bonifacio's sister, Esperidiona. He was a close friend of Ladislao Diwa, and both studied at the Universidad de Santo Tomas. He was executed at Bagumbayan on February 1897. Valentin Diaz, from 1849 to 1916. He was a member of Logia Taliban No. 165. His Masonic name was Tupas. He was from Pauay, Ilocos Norte, and became official de Mesa del Juzgado de Binondo, and like the others, joined Rizal's La Liga Filipina. He served as a councilor in the Supreme Council of the Katipunan from 1892 to 1893. He was one of the signatories of the Pact ng Biak na Bato and joined General Aguinaldo in exile in Hong Kong. He served as colonel of the army during the Philippine-American War, and he died in the year 1916. Andres Bonifacio, from 1863 to 1897. He was also from Logia Taliban No. 165. His Masonic name was Sinukuan. He was the third, after Roman Basa, fourth and last Supremo of the Katipunan, and led the start of the revolution in Manila in the year 1896. He refused to recognize the government of General Aguinaldo. For such action, he and his brother Procopio were charged with treason and sedition, captured and tried by a council of war. They were found guilty and sentenced to death. Aguinaldo reportedly commuted the sentence to banishment, but other generals prevailed, and the execution order was carried out on May 10 in the mountains of Maragondon, Cavite. Unsatisfied with Arellano's performance as Supremo, Bonifacio later had him deposed, and supported the election of Roman Basa as Supremo on February 1, 1893. The Supreme Council was then composed of Basa, Jose Toriano Santiago, Bonifacio, and Vicente Molina. Bonifacio would only become Supremo on January 5, 1894, with Santiago as secretary, Emilio Jacinto as fiscal, and Molina as treasurer. Further reorganization in 1896 led to Jacinto becoming secretary and Pio Valenzuela becoming fiscal. The Supreme Council in August 1896, prior to the outbreak of the Philippine Revolution, was led by Bonifacio as the Supremo, with Jacinto as Secretary of State, Teodoro Plata as Secretary of War, Bricio Pantas as Secretary of Justice, Aguedo del Rosario as Secretary of Interior, and Enrique Pacheco as Secretary of Finance. Jose Rizal and the Katipunan. Jose Rizal never became involved in the organization and activities of the Katipunan, but the Katipuneros still looked up to him as a leader. In fact, Rizal's name was used as a password among the society's highest-ranking members who were called Bayani. Andres Bonifacio had already known Rizal during his La Liga Filipina days, although Rizal did not know Bonifacio personally. Nevertheless, Bonifacio so respected Rizal's intelligence and talent that in June 1896 he sent Dr. Pio Valenzuela to Dapitan to seek Rizal's advice on the planned revolution. Rizal told Valenzuela that the timing was not right for a revolution. The people were not yet ready and they did not have enough weapons. He suggested that the Katipunan obtain the support of wealthy and influential Filipinos first in order to gain financial assistance. He also recommended Antonio Luna as commander of its armed forces, since Luna had much knowledge and expertise in military tactics. Valenzuela returned to Manila on June 26 and relayed Rizal's advice to Bonifacio, who admitted that it would indeed be fatal for the Filipinos to fight without enough weapons. However, there was no stopping the revolution. Bonifacio ordered his men to prepare for battle. He directed them to store enough food and other supplies. Battle plans were made with the help of Emilio Jacinto. It was suggested that the revolutionary headquarters be located near the seas or mountains to provide for an easy retreat if necessary. The Katipunan is discovered. Rumors about a secret revolutionary society had long been in circulation, although no solid evidence could be found to support them. The big break as far as the Spanish authorities was concerned came on August 19, 1896, when a KKK member, Teodoro Patino, told his sister Honoria about the existence of the Katipunan. Patino was a worker in the printing press of Diario de Manila. Honoria was then living with nuns in a Mandaluyong orphanage. The information upset Honoria so much that she told the orphanage Mother Superior, Sor Teresa de Jesus, what her brother had revealed. Sor Teresa suggested they seek the advice of Father Mariano Hill, the parish priest of Tondo. After hearing Patino's revelations, Father Mariano Hill, accompanied by several Guardia Civils, immediately searched the premises of Diario de Manila and found evidence of the Katipunan's existence. The Governor-General was quickly informed. The printing press was padlocked, and hundreds of suspected KKK members were arrested. The Cry of Pugad Lawin. News about the discovery of the Katipunan spread to Manila and nearby suburbs, and Andres Bonifacio immediately called for a general meeting. Various wings of the Katipunan gathered at the house of Juan Ramos in Pugad Lawin on August 23, 1896. Ramos was a son of Melchora Aquino, also known as Tandang Sora, and was later acknowledged as the mother of the Katipunan. Bonifacio asked his men whether they were willing to fight to the bitter end. Everyone shouted their approval, except for Teodoro Plata, who thought that it was too soon for a revolution. Heartened by his men's response, Bonifacio then asked them to tear their cedulas to pieces, as a sign of their defiance and determination to rise against the Spaniards. The men immediately tore up their cedulas, shouting, "Mabuhay ang Pilipinas!" known as the Cry of Pugad Lawin. The Katipunan in Cavite. Cavite soon became the center of the revolution, and the Katipuneros there divided themselves into the Magdalo and Magdiwang factions. Baldomero Aguinaldo, brother of Emilio Aguinaldo, headed the Magdalo group, which was stationed in Kawit. General Mariano Alvarez led the Magdiwang group, which was stationed in Noveleta. The two groups fought in separate battles. Emilio Aguinaldo overran Kawit on August 31, 1896, while Alvarez attacked Noveleta. In Bacoor, Aguinaldo tried to intercept Spanish reinforcements coming from Manila, but he was repulsed and forced to retreat to nearby Imus. Here, on the morning of September 5, he defeated the Spanish troops under the command of General Aguirre. 100 Spaniards were killed and 60 weapons were confiscated. Aguinaldo was hailed as a hero. The adoring Caviteños referred him as General Miong and no longer Capitan Miong. General Aguinaldo's numerous victories in the battlefield made him the acknowledged revolutionary leader in Cavite. He issued a proclamation on October 31, 1896, enjoining the people to take courage and continue fighting for Philippine independence. Owing to the defeat of the Spaniards in Cavite, Camilo de Polavieja replaced Ramon Blanco as Governor-General on December 13, 1896. Polavieja was more successful than his predecessor and slowly regained one-third of the province. Andres Bonifacio's execution. While Aguinaldo was recognized as leader by the Magdalo faction, Bonifacio was recognized as the leader of the Katipunan by the Magdiwang faction. An assembly was held in Imus, Cavite on December 31, 1897 to settle the leadership issue but was not successful. Then on March 22, another assembly was held at Tejeros, known as the Tejeros Convention, to elect officers of the revolutionary government. Aguinaldo won as president, while Bonifacio was relegated as the director of the interior. Bonifacio rejected the elections and declared it void. Bonifacio later formed the Naik Military Agreement, essentially created a government contending Aguinaldos. Soon after, Bonifacio was captured, stood trial, and was sentenced to death by a war council of Aguinaldo's government. Aguinaldo initially commuted the sentence to deportation, but later reversed the commutation upon pressure from Pio del Pilar and other officers. On orders from General Mariano Noriel, Andres Bonifacio was executed at the foothills of Mount Buntis by Major Lazaro Macapagal on May 10, 1897. The revolution continues. Bonifacio's death did not deter the Filipinos from fighting for their freedom. The Spanish government, for its part, doubled its efforts in trying to control Cavite, which was considered the seat of the revolution. When Governor-General Primo de Rivera replaced Camilo Pulavieja on April 27, 1897, he immediately marched to Naik, Cavite to persuade the Filipinos to surrender. The rebels, however, stood their ground. Aguinaldo realized that Cavite was no longer safe for his men. They moved to Batangas, where they temporarily set up camp in the town of Talisay. However, Spanish soldiers were able to pursue them there. Thus, they retreated to Morong on June 10, 1897, and proceeded to Biak na Bato in Bulacan. The Biak na Bato Republic. Emilio Aguinaldo established his headquarters in Biak na Bato in Bulacan Province. The news immediately spread throughout the country, and the revolutionaries were once more in high spirits. General Llanera, who was in Nueva Ecija, declared his support for Aguinaldo. In July 1897, Aguinaldo established the Biak na Bato Republic and issued a proclamation stating the following demands. First is the expulsion of the friars and the return of the friar lands to the Filipinos. Second is the representation of the Philippines in the Spanish Cortes. Third is the freedom of the press and of religion. Fourth is the abolition of the government's power to banish Filipinos. And fifth is the equality for all before the law. A charter based on the Cuban Constitution was also drafted by Felix Ferrer and Isabelo Artacho. It was signed on November 1, 1897. The Biak na Bato Constitution provided for the establishment of a Supreme Council that would serve as the highest governing body of the Republic. It also outlined certain basic human rights such as the freedom of religion, freedom of the press, and the right to education. Emilio Aguinaldo and Mariano Trias were elected Supreme Council Presidents and Vice President, respectively. The Pact of Biak na Bato. Pedro Paterno, a Spaniard born in the Philippines, volunteered to act as negotiator between Aguinaldo and Governor Primo de Rivera in order to end the clashes. Paterno's effort paid off when on December 15, 1897, he signed the pact as the representative of the revolutionaries and de Rivera as the representative of the Spanish government. The leaders are Emilio Aguinaldo as president, Mariano Trias as vice president, Antonio Montenegro as secretary, Baldomero Aguinaldo as treasurer, and Emilio Riejo de Dios. On December 23, 1897, General Celestino Tejero and Ricardo Monet of the Spanish army arrived in Biak na Bato and became hostages of the rebels. A ceasefire was declared by both camps, and an agreement between Aguinaldo and the Spanish forces was made that the Spanish government will grant self-rule to the Philippines in 3 years if Aguinaldo went to exile and surrender his arms. In exchange, Aguinaldo will receive 800,000 pesos as remuneration to the revolutionaries and an amnesty. After receiving a partial payment of 400,000 pesos, Aguinaldo left for Hong Kong on December 27, 1897. Some Filipino generals, however, did not believe in the sincerity of the Spaniards. They refused to surrender their arms. Nevertheless, the Te Deum was still sung on December 23, 1898. The Biak na Bato Pact fails. The Filipinos and the Spaniards did not trust each other. As a result, periodic clashes between the two groups still took place even after Aguinaldo's departure from the country. The Spanish did not pay the entire agreed amount. And that's the end of our discussion. I hope you learned something. Thank you for watching.